Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are today. Welcome to session 2 of Startup School for week 2. I'm glad you could join us today. I got some intelligence about today's session. I hear it's really fantastic. It's called Scaling Gen AI for Production, Advanced Agents, Orchestrations, and Deployment. No pressure on our speakers today. So I want to get to them as soon as possible, but let's do our standard housekeeping, everyone. Startup School is comprised of 4 weeks, as you know. There's a week 0 on-demand session that you can grab at the website and check out. That'll give you some foundational information. We are in session 2 of week 2. Next week, we will have some great sessions with our partner Weights and Biases. That should be interesting. I heard some news about them recently. I'm not sure what I heard, but should be a pretty interesting session given all the news. And of course, we'll have startup CTO and co-founder at Zilla's for an Ask Me Anything session. And we all know about the very, very special week 4 session with Google DeepMind. So don't miss that one. The structure is fairly simple. We have live sessions Tuesdays and Thursdays, same time each week. And we have on-demand sessions that appear on the website a little bit after the session concludes. We have Skills Boost Labs, so you can try this all for free, get your hands on and lock in some of that learning and knowledge that you get from these tremendous sessions. And you can earn some skills badges too, which is fun. We've given you all this information in your email, but just in case, I'm going to reiterate it here. You can access the labs completely free of charge. Just go to this QR code. If you have any trouble getting into the labs, getting your credits, or anything of that nature, just send us an email at startupschool-external@google.com, and we will be there to help. A few points during the event. As you know, there's a chat function and a Q&A panel. So please ask questions. Please upvote questions. The Google experts are here to help, and we'll answer those questions at the end. We save about 10 minutes to do the Q&A, so that's always fun. As I mentioned, each session is recorded, so you can check it out on the resources tab of the website a little bit after the session. We don't share the slides, but you can do your hands-on training with the skills boost that I mentioned before. All right, that's it from me. Now I'll bring to the stage Abraham and Ilya, and I'll see you a little bit later for the Q&A. Enjoy.
Hey everyone, really excited to be here. I have my slide. Oh, perfect. So myself and Ilya, we're going to talk about scaling Gen AI production for production, advanced agents, orchestration, deployment. Say that 3 times. When we say Gen AI, by the way, we could be saying agent or agentic just for the case of this talk. Really excited to see everyone from around the world. I saw Bogota, I saw Bulgaria, even the Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. Never been, but it sounds amazing. Myself, I'm Abraham Gomez. I'm a global startup custom engineer. Essentially, I'm very fortunate that day in, day out, I get to talk to startups and sort of help them out on solving these really scalable, issues that they have and putting it on Google Cloud. And every now and then I get fortunate enough to work with folks like Ilya, where they are sort of the experts. Internally, we call him the godfather of the agent starter pack. So Ilya, give yourself a quick intro.
Thanks a lot, Abram. Nice to meet you all, guys. I'm Ilya. I'm an ML specialist, so I get to help customers, startups, developers in using AI in GCP. As part of my day-to-day job, I also try to help both one-on-one with some customers, but also scaling up through some initiatives. And the starter pack is a great initiative where we try to accelerate customers to use GCP and build agents in GCP. So I'm one of the creators of the initiative. But yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah. He's very, very humble. So today what we're going to talk about, the agent starter pack. There's a QR code. It's open source. It's on GitHub. The direct link, if you want to access it, is goo.gle/agent-starter-pack. So what we're going to talk about first is why we even created the agent starter pack, right? Then we're going to actually talk to you and what it is, what does it offer, and what's sort of the value that you could get from it. And then probably 90% of this presentation is actually going to be the live demo. There's a lot of things, moving parts. There's things like Terraform. There's going to be moments where we're going to have the code do its magic and 2 to 3 minutes of downtime, just sort of waiting the code, to finish. At those points, we may just do just a quick little Q&A, or we'll go back to the slides and sort of explain more context. But as a reminder, right, the moderators, we're looking at your questions in the chat, so please, keep asking, and we'll try to, answer them as we go live. So why an agent starter pack? Ignore the lorem ipsum. I keep forgetting to delete that. But essentially, right, I think one important thing to note is that it took us roughly 3 months. We got very, very smart people like Ilya and his team, right, to sit down. We locked them in a room and just said, hey, can you build a repeatable solution, right, that could get a GenAI application to production, right? And after 3 months, we built sort of the bare bones of what we're going to be talking about. And the reason why, right, this was so important was we kept seeing startups struggle, right, from going from the production or the prototype phase to production phase, right, took roughly 3 to 9 months. And the way that we define it, right, is getting that GenAI application to production and monetize it, right? If we're not monetizing it, then that sort of defeats the purpose of everything that we're building. So one other thing to mention, right, is we do have a bring your own agent, or BYOA, mentality when it comes to the agent starter pack. Right now, we're starting with just the ones that we know many of our startups are using, like LangGraph and Crew AI. You could also use your own first-party one, right? But this is sort of endless, and we truly hope that since it's open source, right, folks could take it, make a copy, and use whatever agent that they want under the hood. So path to production. I'm pretty sure all of you have, gone onto the AI Studio, Vertex AI Studio, played with Gemini, and, usually the prototyping is quite pleasant, right? I've seen founders that are not very technical build amazing prototypes, right? You could have, documents added in there. You could do some good prompt engineering. But similar to a hike, the beginning is, that sort of flat land. It's pleasant, but it's really that scaling upwards that things get a little tricky. And that's what we sort of seen. There's a lot of things in the path to production that gets difficult, right? Just how you're hiking, you get sort of dehydrated, you get tired, right? You're exhausted. And this is really what matters most if your goal is to reach the top. So some of the things that we've seen, right, is deployment and operations. When we say deployment operations, right, things like, can you have, that luxury of you push code to GitHub and it just goes live, right? There's a lot of moving pieces to make that, accomplishable. And not only you want it to go live, but you want the thing that is live to be scalable and robust, to be able to be testable with unit testing, load testing, integration testing, and also in case maybe your test pass everything, but you realize your users don't like what you just, provided, maybe a specific feature, you have to be able to roll that back. And as we know, right, a big part of GenAI applications are very focused on the UI and the user experience, right? It does feel that that's sort of a novel thing of GenAI agents in general, is that it pushes your development, your business logic as close to your user. So you have to be in mind that you want to reduce this feedback loop as much as possible. Also, evaluations, right? Just Google alone, there's many, many models that we offer. We also offer many open source. So if you're playing with Gemini 1.5 a few months ago when we launched Gemini 2, you're going to want to measure, hey, should I be using Gemini 2 instead of Gemini 1.5? Well, what about Gemini 2 Flash or Gemini 2 Flash Lite or anything like that, right? Also with the open source model like Llama, how do you make sure that you're evaluating all your models? And I truly believe, right, all startups should be focusing and building in such a way that it's very easy to evaluate the performance of one model to another. We truly believe that many startups aren't going to have one model that rules them all. You're going to have to use and leverage multiple. Another thing is customization, right? We also don't want to provide a solution that locks you into one use case, right? For example, a chatbot. We know that many agents are chatbot driven, but that doesn't mean we want to build sort of a solution that just focuses on that use case. So we try to make it as dynamic and sort of a la carte, so to speak, in which you could take the pieces that you enjoy, put your business logic, and just know that it will hit sort of the marks that you're going to need. And lastly, observability. I think this is a very, very moving part and a very dynamic part of building GenAI applications, right? You need that feedback loop. as we said, right, agents tend to be very close to the user experience. So if you're not observing, monitoring, logging, all these things in real time, it's really hard to capture if your users are enjoying the solution that you guys are making, or if they're finding an alternative, right? So observability, again, right? All these things, deployment, evaluations, customization, observability, is what we sort of define as climbing up that mountain. So this is my slide. I don't know. I like it. It's a little silly, but from prototype to production, it's messy, it's confusing, right? But we've seen it so many times that we try to provide a little structure. And I think the best way to envision this is the agent starter pack is sort of like your highway to production, right? We have support for creating the app. We have UI built in. We also have end-to-end testing built in, automated deployments with Terraform, right? We have a lot of the best practices that we've seen, that Ilya and his team has seen when working with customers firsthand. So, the goal is that your agent yourself with sunglasses could hit that target that you want, right? And if the message isn't clear, I have this amazing little animation that shows you, right, pleasantly going from prototype to production. So I don't think there's anyone better that could actually tell you guys what is in the agent starter pack than the creator of the agent starter pack.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Abram. So if you go to the next slide, we can see like what are the different components that are part of the starter pack, yeah, right? Which is essentially this idea of, Abram mentioned, accelerating developers into building production agents, production-ready agents. So there are different components of that, and you will find that some of these components are actually mapping to some of the challenges we discussed before. We have the production API server, which is essentially tackling the problem of deployment and operations. We have the UI playground, which is essentially supporting you in the process of creating and iterating with your agent, so to kind of simulate the user experience. Then we have the CI/CD and Terraform. Really important because, as Ebra mentioned, the goal is making sure that whenever we find an issue, we're able to launch something in production with a matter of one Git commit, right? And then automatically or automagically, we will have all the testing being done, all the deployment being done by Google Cloud itself. We do offer a series of different patterns. So different kind of agents you can develop with it. And the list of agents that we are going to make part of the starter pack is actually growing. So if you come back in 1 month, you will see way more agents being part of it. And the idea is not every time you want to start from the same starting point, right? There are some developers who really like LangGraph, for example. There are some developers who like CrewAI because maybe they want to develop a multi-agent system. We see now some new use cases where instead people will use the multimodal live API, which is this idea of having a low latency conversation with the LLM via voice or via audio and via video and images. And then finally, the observability part, which is so much important. The idea that no matter what you have in production, you want to build insights into what is the traffic you're getting in production so that you can have a flywheel where you iterate back into the development stage. And then again, because you have a stronger DevOps, MLOps support, you're able with a couple of commits to actually go back into production quickly. So yeah, if you actually go to the next slides, we can actually see all the different buckets that are being tackled. The deployment and operation part, the customization part, the observability part, and finally the evaluation, which is kind of horizontal to many different components. There are some notebooks we make part of the starter pack, which will guide you in the process of evaluation. But also, the UI we offer as part of the process is itself thought to actually help you building out your golden evaluation dataset. You will find that actually one of the key challenges of creating, doing evaluation for GenAI and for AI agents is actually the idea that many times you don't have the right evaluation dataset yet. So you need to build a system capable of collecting this data. And so like a UI is a great place where whenever you're chatting with your agent, you're capable of saying, oh, I like this chat. Let's use it as a evaluation point. Or maybe I don't like this chat because the model is not really performing well, but still equally is important we add it to make sure our agent will respond well when in production. Yeah, and so I think this is kind of summarizing like the whole all the different components, but I think like it's even easier to show you guys a demo of the starter pack, which will go through, I think, more than 15 different GCP products. So if you look at this slide here, we have the full architecture, I guess, high-level architecture of the starter pack. But you can see, like if we start from the left side, where you have the user interacting with a front end. So typically, so the starter pack will have the goal to help you productionize the backend. We really believe that the front end typically is something that it serves a different persona. Maybe you have a front-end engineering team building out that front end based on the specific use case you have. So the starter pack will provide a UI playground, but this UI playground is developed and exposed as a, develop to support the development process. It's not really the UI you will bring in production in front of your users. But when it comes to the backend, that part is the part we are aiming to productionize. And so if you start from the left side, we have on the top Gemini or other LLMs you can use in Model Garden. So Vertex AI Model Garden is this editor where you can actually use different LLMs, both open source or first party, made available, or third party like partners, made available to you. All the evaluation part, the orchestration part, where you will have different frameworks to orchestrate your agent, the serving side, where you can use different kind of ways to deploy your agent. We will go in detail into it as part of the demo. But then if you look at the right side, so the left side is the fun part, right? We're talking about agents, evaluation, Gemini, deploying it. But the right side is actually the part which makes the difference, which is all the foundation you need to have in place to actually have something in production. If you start from the bottom, we have the CI/CD. So like this idea here that no matter what I'm making a commit in my GitHub or Git provider, I want to make sure there is a comprehensive testing that leads to a deployment in production. Then you have the Terraform part. So all the code required for you to create resources. These resources might be a service account. It might be a bucket. It might be like a set of rules I want to have in my GCP project. And like a great way to define this is via Terraform, which is a infrastructure as code methodology to do this kind of thing. You have the observability part where we just discussed. It will be capable of observing what's happening in production. So logging, cloud tracing, so all GCP native products here. And then you go to a level up and you have BigQuery, where we are going to actually store all our login. So all our insights are going to be stored in BigQuery, ready for you to be analyzed with Looker, and then also be ingested maybe potentially in a vector store where you will be able to keep your source of truth, which will be also accessible in theory. It can also be accessible by an LLM or by an agent. So hopefully this gives you an idea, but I think with a live demo, everything will be more clear when we actually try to use it. So now I'm going to share my screen, and you will be able to see like the repository of the starter pack, which is our starting point. So please bear with us because we released literally yesterday. So it's such a fresh new project, and we really wanted to have this starter pack release for today's session. So bear with us in case you encounter any issues, please, and please raise an issue in GitHub in case you encounter it. But let's go through together a little bit. So the code of a starter pack is essentially, you can see it here, you can install it as a Python package. So in a matter of like 3 lines of command, you will be able to install the starter pack, and the experience will look like this. I'm going to share a different tab now, so I can show you actually how it will look in practice. But I promise it should be the same thing if you're running it on your local machine. So let's actually share the full screen here. Okay. Perfect. So if I now run agent starter pack and I want to create an agent, let's call it my agent AMER EMEA, I don't know, something like this. Yeah. So the starter pack will guide you into the process of creating the agent. First of all, it will ask you, okay, what kind of agent you want to start with? We offer a series of different agents, as I mentioned, from LangGraph, a base implementation in LangGraph, to a complex agent using RAG in Vertex AI search, so like a really complex agent capable of refreshing the data into the vector DB. Crew AI, which is a multi-agent system where you have a coder, you have a developer, you have like a lead engineer kind of interacting into a system where they are each one reviewing the work of the other to produce some code. And then finally, you have the multimodal live API. So like, no matter what you choose, let's try maybe, for example, we can choose the second one. If you choose the second one.
So 3 of these, right, use like an open source, Crew
Correct.
AI or line graph, line chain, whereas the multimodal live one, right, is just calling the API directly.
Directly, correct. But sky is the limit here, and we, as part of this initiative, we are going to provide new agents in the future, which are going to use some of the SDK and frameworks we develop in Google. But also, we are going to keep an approach where we are always open to open source as well. So you will see a mixture of both Google first party kind of SDK and open source initiative. The idea is to really give you a good breadth of like all the possibilities of building agents. Then we can actually select where we want to deploy the solution. So in Google Cloud, there are many places where you can deploy an agent. One of the two most common are Vertex AI Agent Engine, which is a product that was released a couple of days ago in GA, so it's fully available. This product here is essentially specifically created to deploy agents in Vertex AI. And the idea is simplifying the deployment process so that you don't need to deal with Docker files and things like this, and showing you like some agent-specific functionalities. But really, like, you can start deploying an agent in Agent Engine with a matter of like a Python file, and that's it. Or the alternative will be to use Cloud Run. Cloud Run is a serverless container managed service where instead, as part of the deployment, you will need to create a container. So the choice between the two depends on what kind of flexibility do you want. Do you want to manage the container, or like you're just looking at deploying the agents? So based on that, you can choose. Both choices are equally good. Now, for this demo here, for example, we can choose Vertex Agent Engine. It will then ask you which region you want to use in Google Cloud. We can leave for the default, but you can change it depending on your location requirements. And then it will ask you for, like, it will check if you're using the right project. We see many people actually having issues with authentication. Hopefully this time we don't have an issue with authentication. And yes, we can continue with the process. We're going to verify that we have a connection to Vertex AI. And then this is all going well. We created our agent. So now, if we look at what's the content of this folder, for example, you will see that within the folder, we have a repository being created. Now, if I actually show you the repository being created, you can see, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can see that it's a fully comprehensive repository, which is including different things. It's including the code of our agent, for example, which is a lang graph kind of example in this case here. It's including the data ingestion part. This part here is actually specific to this agent here, because in order for a RAG solution to work, you need to have a data ingestion pipeline capable of refreshing the data every day and making sure everything is fresh. So even this simple folder here, to be honest with you guys, it will deserve its own repository, because to just do data ingestion properly is such an hard task. You need to make sure the data is always fresh, you don't have duplicates, you're ingesting from the right source, you're able to scale to terabytes. And all these kind of practices are taken in consideration just to develop this single folder here.
So this is also a good snapshot, right? The agent starter pack is a good snapshot of, hey, these are all the things that we have observed that startups are struggling with, right? Exactly. We're trying our best to cover all our bases without making it so opinionated, but also flexible to what startups need.
Exactly. And you will always be free to edit the code, right? So that you can start from a point, and then based on your personal preferences, you can diverge from it. And that's totally fine and expected. You will have all the deployment code. So like both the CI/CD pipeline, which will be able to deploy your agent across the different environments, but also all the Terraform we just discussed. So like APIs, IAM permissioning, service account, logsing, you name it. We deploy with one command the full infrastructure you see in the architecture. it will offer you a front end. In this case, we use Streamlit as a way to interact with the LLM. Some notebooks. Also, this is important. We pre-populate a notebook folder with some notebooks you might find useful. For example, a notebook explaining you how to evaluate a LangGraph agent, in this case here, or a notebook on introduction to agent engine. Depending on the agent you choose, you will find different notebooks are going to be suggested. And then finally, you will have the test. The tests are essentially these are pre-built tests that will help you into actually defining your own test. So like integration test, unit test, load test for the application you're developing. Okay, but let's actually go to something more fun now. And we are going to actually demo a more complex, let's say, agent where we are going to use the multimodal live API to actually start chatting with the agent, right? So like we can actually click on for here. And in this case here, we're going to use Claran. And we are going to essentially deploy an agent capable of responding in real time with the user. So in order to do that, we can actually run this command here, which will directly into one single command. It will do a couple of things. It will install all the packages we have.
Yeah.
And then it will trigger the creation of a UI capable of where we'll be able to interact with the agent directly. Now we will need to give it a couple of seconds because behind the scenes, I can actually show you what we are doing behind the scenes, which I think is pretty interesting. So essentially, behind the scenes, we are creating an agent where it will use the multimodal live API. So you will see we're going to talk with it. But not only, this agent will be able to interact with its own vector DB. So not only we are leveraging the knowledge of the model, but we are connecting this model to an external source so that it can leverage this external source of knowledge to respond to our question. Now, in this case here, the model will be using one of our documentation on deploying GenAI application. So this is just as a placeholder. But think about how you can replace this kind of knowledge with your own internal knowledge, right? Maybe you have some documents related to your personal, or like, I don't know, like the use case for your personal use case, or maybe you want to connect the model with an API that does X, Y, Z. You can also do that. So this is just a placeholder. So essentially, we're going to do RAG on the top of this document.
Yeah. So essentially, what the first example was, hey, here's an agent, sort of the skeleton one using LangGraph, right? And you just showed us, all the code spins up after playing with the CLI, just 4 lines of it, right?
Yeah.
Terraform came in, data ingestion, and the LangGraph skeleton. Now, for this case, right, what you have here is you're not really using any open source agent tool like LangGraph or Crua. You're just calling the API, specifically the live API for Gemini, directly.
Exactly.
So again, it shows that you don't have to use one of those. You can, right? We partner with both of those companies to make it even easier. But for this, you're going to showcase, hey, if you want to just use the APIs directly, especially the live one, it's a very approachable mechanism.
Exactly. Yeah, and you'll get the same structure I just showed you before. So like the README, the notebook, the deployment, the application, you get all of this. Yeah. So I think now we should be good to go. You can see the server started. So I'm going to share a different screen because so that you can actually hear the audio of me speaking. So let's try to see. So I'm going to present here. Perfect. And now we click play, and this will connect us with the model. So let's try to see. Hello.
How can I help you today?
Hi there. I'm looking for the definition of governance in the context of MLOps. Can you give me that?
In the context of MLOPs, governance encompasses all the practices and policies that establish control, accountability, and transparency over the development, deployment, and ongoing management of machine learning models. This includes all activities related to the code, data, and model lifecycles.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. Now I'm going to share my screen. Can you see what I have in my hand?
Yes, I see you. You appear to be wearing a gray sweater.
Yes, what do I have in my hand?
You are holding a black smartphone in your hand.
Do you think this is related to MLOP?
I am focused on MLOPs, and it's hard to say if a phone is related.
Okay,
Can you tell?
interesting. Now, what if I share a different screen? Can you tell me if this is actually focusing on MLOP? Now I'm
Sure, I can try. Share the screen, and I'll take a look. Okay.
Can you see this?
Yes, I can see your screen. It shows a Google Cloud page titled Life Cycle of a Generative AI Application. Is there a specific part of the screen you would like me to focus on?
No,
Or a
I
question
think
you...
that's fine. Thank you.
Wow, amazing. Elia, I could already see that my job, like you don't need me anymore. You could just have this AI agent with you. There
Yeah, no, I'm joking. But you know, like you just seen a demo, right? But like
Yeah.
the cool part didn't start yet, because actually what the starter pack provides is not just the tools to start experimenting with it, but actually it will provide you all the CI/CD, all the Terraform, all the testing for you to actually deploy this application confidently. And confidently is the big word
Yeah.
here, in production, right? Because
And that's what we see, right? Like startups, they build the cool, what you just showed, right? Many startups are building that, but it's putting it into production. And that's where the starter pack, we hope, excites you as well, right? We know live demos like this like are always amazing, so I applaud you for doing it. But let's focus on the other stuff. How do you put it into production?
Exactly. So now we are going to take another agent, which in this case we are going to use Cloud Shell. Cloud Shell is a interactive UI capable of allowing you to in Google Cloud capable of running CLI commands. So like it's like a remote ID kind of thing. And I just created there a dummy GCP set of projects, so that we are going to try to deploy an agent in production, using the starter pack. So let's try doing it. I'm going to share again my screen. And in this case, the full screen. Perfect. So let's try to see how the starter pack will help us. So I think I already installed the starter pack in the shell. So if we run agent starter pack, we should be able to see the command being present. But let's double check that.
Can you make the text a little bit bigger?
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so you can see actually we do have the starter pack installed. So I already run pip install starter pack, agent starter pack. Now, let's try to create an agent there. So I'm going to say agent starter pack, create my agent. Okay, so we're going to create an agent. In this case, we're going to use the simple one, which is the LangGraph-based React. It just contains a dummy agent. I will show you the code so that the deployment will be just a little bit faster. But let's go with the option one. And then we are going to choose we can choose between two different deployment targets. In this case, let's use Cloud Run for deploying this agent remotely. Finally, we're going to choose a region. Let's go with the US Central one again. So we are going to test that the connection is done, and boom, we have our agent being created in here. Okay, so you can see we have the same folder you are familiar with. That doesn't change.
And for those that are keeping count, this is now the third agent that you have deployed, right?
So in like 10 minutes, we deployed 3 agents, which is great. So you can see this code is a pretty simple agent where we give a tool to the agent where it will be able to search for web search on weather. So if I ask a question on the weather, if the query contains San Francisco, it will give you 60 degrees and foggy. I guess today is a good day to actually be accurate, but otherwise it will be 90 degrees and sunny. And it's a simple LangGraph agent capable of dealing with this tool call. Okay, so now we can again install all the packages. So we navigate into the folder, and then we can run the playground. So the playground is this Streamlit UI where you'll be able to chat with the agent, see some responses, and iterate over time. So this is going to install for us all the different packages we have. Okay, perfect. So you can see we install the packages, and then we trigger Streamlit. So Streamlit is going to help us into iterate with our own agent. So we can see we can view the Streamlit application by clicking on this link here. So this will bring us to the UI. The first time it will take maybe 30 seconds to start. Typically, it's faster otherwise.
Yeah, and someone asked earlier today, I think it was, who was it? Dominic. This is sort of the front end Streamlit portion
Exactly.
of it, right? And again, you guys could decide if you want to use Streamlit or even use a front end, right? Not all agents require a chat interface, right? There's some that sort of work in the background, right? And do their magic.
Exactly. So let me zoom in a little bit, but you can see that behind the scenes, what we've done, and I can actually show you the make file. Behind the scenes, we run this playground command, which is doing two things. Now, because we are using Cloud Run, we are deploying on the background a backend system capable of receiving requests. So if I show you the code, it's this server.py here, which is using FastAPI, which is a common library for creating backends. You can use Flask, you can use other libraries if you want. In this case, we are using FastAPI. And this backend is actually capable of receiving requests from the stream messages endpoint. So if you send a request to the stream messages, we are going to leverage, I can show you the code, we're going to leverage our agent to stream back a response to it, essentially. So this endpoint is essentially pulling that request, logging some tracing properties so that you will be able to have a good metadata of your request, and then finally streaming back the response to the user. Of course, things can be more complex than that. But now let's try to interact with it. So if I write hi, the agent responds with, yes, how can I help you today? Perfect. Okay, so you can do different things now. You can ask, for example, what's the weather in New York? I guess in New York it would be 90 degrees and sunny because it's not San Francisco. But if I ask, how about San Francisco? Let's see if it responds. Yes, 60 degrees and foggy in San Francisco, unfortunately. So you can see, like, this is a dummy example, but you can see now how, potentially I can go in my code. I don't like my agent in the current state, and I want to change it. Maybe I don't like 90 degrees and 60 degrees and foggy. Let's turn it up to 80 degrees and foggy. I don't know. Click save, and you can see actually this is reloading our backend. So behind the scenes, this is essentially refreshing our agent. So now, if I regenerate the question, we should see a different response. Let's try to see. Yeah, you can see now it's 80 degrees and foggy, not anymore 60 degrees. So you can see how we can iterate really fast, develop something, and then when we're ready, of course, we will need to do the evaluation. First, we can deploy to production. This UI is super comprehensive. For example, I show you, like, you have different capabilities. You will be able to create a new chat here, delete a chat, really similar to what you have in like your chat systems like Gemini. You have these kind of capabilities here. You can actually ask for different questions, like you can edit a given question in case you don't like it. And also we offer this really important capability here called Save Chat. So if you click on this, you'll be able to save the chat you're currently using into your file system. This is super important, in my opinion, because this will allow you to, now I think it's an hidden file, so it doesn't show you, but this will allow you to save all the chats that you like to then build an evaluation data set on the top of it.
Exactly. And I guess the end state, so many of the different services and, in that architecture, right, as we showed, a lot of it is get feedback as quick as possible.
Exactly.
Right? When you're in this stage as a developer and you're coding, you're trying to see how your chatbot is reacting, right?
Yeah.
Things like that little button there that says tool calls. If you click it, gives you that insight of, oh, this is what is happening, right? You have a function call, this is the query, and again, it just helps that feedback.
Yeah, and this is pretty important also because we found out that many users, many companies actually need to offer the transparency to the user of, like, for example, what tool call the agent is performing. This helps a lot the user experience. Not just you're seeing the final response, but you can see like the citation, like where the agent is taking the information, for example. So it's important to forward it as part of also the Streamlit UI so that you can kind of simulate the user experience.
Yeah, and a lot of what you have here, right? Like it has function calling skeletons, right? So you could just go from it, right? If you want to do, let's say, call the weather API, right? You just have to build that component and add it, right? So you could think of the agent starter pack. It is a starting point, right? It's not going to be the thing that you're going to deploy tomorrow, but it's going to be ready, right? It's going to have all sort of the best practices, and then you just add on top of it.
Yeah, and just to finish like the Streamlit part, of course we offer multimodal capabilities. So in case you want to send images, audio, videos to the agent, and of course the underlying model supports it, and Gemini, as always, will support any modality, you will be able to start developing also multimodal use case. Like you can ask, what do you see in this image? Of course, this image will just have a screenshot of our current chat. But sky's the limit also there, because you can start creating really comprehensive multimodal use cases. Now, I just showed you like the development part, right? And now the process will be about evaluation, trying to build confidence in our system before we start deploying it. Let's imagine we already have done the evaluation part. And of course, as part of the evaluation, you will be able to use Vertex AI Evaluation, which is a comprehensive product we offer in Google Cloud to evaluate agents. But let's imagine let's assume we have done that and we are ready to do the deployment phase. So as part of the deployment part, the starter pack offers a comprehensive guide, a step-by-step guide, and we also offer a walkthrough. So in case like you are unsure where to start, there is a video on this. So you can actually see me deploying an agent directly in Google Cloud. So like the guide will guide you through the process of like the CI/CD, setting up Terraform, and all things like this. Our end goal is to achieve a system where, if you see here, whenever I run a pull request as part of my repository, we are triggering a CI pipeline. So a CI pipeline is essentially a continuous integration pipeline where we are going to run unit test and integration test. And now, imagine now as a lead developer, I'm approving this and I'm bringing my code into the main branch. Then when we bring it into the main branch, we are going to offer a pipeline where we instead build our container, we deploy to a staging environment, we test our container, and finally, if everything is good, we deploy to production. Now, this thing will take you, I think it is super flexible, so you can customize everything. You can customize the pipeline. If you like GitHub or GitLab pipelines, you can change to that. You can change all the Terraform code according to your needs and to your specific requirements. But let's assume you want to go with the default. We thought that it would be cool actually to offer one command to do all the deployment for you in one go. So you can also use that should you want to. So essentially, I have my the code here ready, but you can see in the starter pack we offer a command called setup CI/CD. So if I actually run the starter pack, you will be able to see there is this command here called setup CI/CD, and the setup CI/CD command will essentially set up everything for you, like the Terraform, the cloud build, and stuff like this. So we can run this command. Oh, no, this is not the right. Let me copy the command for it. So essentially, I'm going to provide to the command a set of different projects I want to use for setting up my system. Like
so right here, you're calling the setup CI/CD. It looks like you're gonna you put the staging right. Here's where you want the staging project, the prod project, and then the CI/CD project, and then also the GitHub repository as well.
Exactly. Yes.
So if you're like a developer, all you have to really, let's say you're focusing just on the code, you deploy to GitHub, and this is going to handle the testing, the integration, the building, and then the deployment of the application.
Exactly. It's going to do all the boring activities of like setting up Terraform, setting up the connection with GitHub. Like these things can be automated. So we thought, why not offering a command? Of course, it's an experimental command. And in practice, when you're looking at creating a robust system, you might want to have the flexibility to change it. So maybe it's not good, at the end for like super customized stuff. But for starting out, is great. So in this case here, we are going to use two projects. You can see actually the production project and the CI/CD project are the same ID. So we're using the same project just for simplicity, but sky's the limit here. You can actually use different projects here. And so we can run this command here. And this will guide us into our interactive UI where we will be able to set up which Git provider you want. In this case, we only have GitHub, but we're looking to expand to it. And then we'll ask you for authenticating, because essentially we need to authenticate our own account into the Cloud Shell. So let's go with option 1, and I'm going to log in and set up my credentials. So we can copy this code, go here. It's a little bit I guess it's not too difficult, but this will essentially log in into the process. No worries if you can see, but anyway, we are not sharing anything confidential here. So now you can see I logged in. So the setup will continue. And as soon as it will detect that we authenticated in Cloud Shell, it will start asking us, do you want to create a new repository or not? In this case, yes, we want to create a new repository. I will be the repository owner, but maybe you want to have an organization as a repository owner. And this will start setting up our environment. So start creating service accounts and things like this. So to prepare the Terraform code to run. The last thing we are going to do is going to be authenticating our own GitHub repository so that it can connect with Google Cloud and Cloud Build. So now you will see it will ask us for a command, actually a link. We need to copy paste and go into a new tab and just click continue and provide the account we want to use for connecting with GitHub. That's it. Yeah. After we run this, everything is in place. So you will see now this running and setting up all the Terraform for us. So you will see it will run now. Okay. So this will run for, I guess, 30 seconds. And in these 30 seconds, it will, well, maybe 1 minute, let's say. In this 1 minute, it will start creating 78 different resources. So we discussed the architecture earlier, Abraham, right? Yeah. Like all the different products. This is essentially setting up everything we need in this product. So like service account, we're going to give the right roles and the right roles, the service account, so that it's capable of calling Gemini. There are special settings where essentially we are saying, hey, every time I make a commit to my pull request, please create a cloud build pipeline, which will trigger my unit test and integration test, right? Yeah. Or every time I make a commit to my main branch and I'm changing maybe one of these files, make a deployment to production, right? So also this is important. So like you don't need to do it manually clicking between different UIs. The code is there to be changed, and it's great that it is code because then you can version it, you can edit it, and you can automatically redeploy.
Yeah, so and I think that's a really good explanation of what Terraform provides value here, right? For those that don't know, Terraform, anything that you could do in the Google Cloud Console, any clicking interaction, connecting, one component to another, has an API call, and Terraform could tap into those API calls and build it all for you, right? So if you ever find yourself making or doing really repeatable tasks, yourself either with the CLI or clicking on the console, Terraform's great. And that's why we use it, as part of building this whole agent starter pack.
Correct. Yeah. And you can see now the code is ready. So behind the scenes, we've done a lot of things. We deployed the Terraform. So you will see new resources being created in Google Cloud. We created a Git repository for our code to be hosted. Currently, we didn't push yet, so the repository is empty. But this created a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Now, if I go to the repositories in Cloud Build, so in the Cloud Build console, you will see that there is the connection with the GitHub repository. So Cloud Build is already authenticated and fully ready for us to send to receive events, essentially. So you can see now we have all the different triggers so that whenever I'm making a commit is triggering my pipeline and so on. So let's start now to actually make a commit, and this will trigger different things, right? So there are, I guess, like we can do different things. One thing we can do is as a developer, let's actually push our code first. So that
and those who may have a question, right? Like right now we're using Quick Labs. We're investing to create one for all of you to have access, right? Just be gracious or be kind to us. We just created the agent starter pack. We're launching it yesterday. So the Quick Labs publicly is going to be made available as soon as we could.
Yeah, you can still of course use it in your own GCP project. And the Quick Lab part currently is available for Googlers to do enabling with you guys. So you can, if you have a Googler that is capable of running a lab, you can actually use it already in an interactive session. But of course, we're also looking at having some self-service Quick Lab for you to use. Yeah. So let's, we just need to, because we're running on Quick Labs, there is a special command I need to run that will prevent any quota issue. Simple to say, some things in Quick Labs are not possible. So I'm just reducing the amount of load testing we're going to do with our model. But besides that, we're ready to push our code and see it is everything happening essentially. So let's now go and push our code. So if we do this will essentially push everything to our main branch. So if you see now, if I refresh my page, you will see I have my repository being created. Yeah, so this is everything we've done together. And you can see there is this dot here where we will see a pipeline being triggered in Cloud Build. Yeah, so this is not a spoiler to you, but this will be the pipeline that will deploy everything to production. Yeah, so it will start doing different things. But before doing that, I wanted to show you quickly how we can all Cloud Build, all the CI/CD can also help you collaborate into the same repository. So, for example, imagine I'm a developer as part of a team, right? And I develop. I'm helping up developing the agent, and I find out that maybe, actually 80 degrees and foggy wasn't a great a great weather. I'm going to say 70 again. Yeah, so I'm going to put it 70, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a pull request. So this pull request will help me into having another person validating my code before we merge to the main branch. So what I'm going to do is simple as I'm going to create a new branch, call it test branch. And then we're going to add the files to it, make a new commit, commit testing. Of course, like in practice, in real life, commit will have a better message. Bear with us. And then we push the code, right? So we pushed our code to the test branch. So you can see now we will have a new branch, and we can open a pull request in GitHub. And so this pull request will action Cloud Build now, and we'll do the things we just discussed earlier, right? So if I click on this in this Cloud Build pipeline, you will see that here automatically we are running unit test and integration test. So these are important to validate our system. So we are checking different things like, for example, if our API server is actually capable of receiving responses from the user, if the agent is actually initialized with all the right packages. And, these tests we have here are there to be changed. Like if I show you the unit test, we are testing different things like, sending dummy requests and seeing if the server responds, things like this. But you can change this, and you can add new unit tests, new integration tests, depending on your specific agent, because every agent will require different kind of testing. But we are giving you like a pre-built template for you to start and iterating on top of it. Yeah. Like we're even testing end-to-end the whole system to make sure before you're actually merged to production, the server is capable of responding. So you can see all the PR checks are now completed. So we run unit test and integration test. We are ready to merge the pull request. And this, boom, will now, because we made a change into the main branch, this will trigger another deployment to production. So now, actually, we have two deployments to production. One, we can ignore it. Let's go into one of them and to see what's happening behind the scenes. So let's go in the one back. We can actually stop this one here. We don't need it anymore. But yeah, let's go into this one here, where you will be able to see that we've done different things. So first of all, as we are using Cloud Run, we need to build a container. So the container will help us into, will essentially be the asset we are going to deploy to Cloud Run, so to serve in real-time requests for our users. Cloud Run is a service allow you to host microservices so that you can respond a low latency to your user request. And it will automatically scale for you, so you don't need to worry about that part. So now you can see we are pushing we build the container, we install all the packages into the container, and then we push the container to Artifact Registry. Artifact Registry is a product in GCP which will allow you to store containers, essentially.
Yeah.
Then we go to the deployment phase. The deployment phase is deploying a Cloud Run service. Yeah. So if I click, if I now go, for example, let's go to the staging project. Apology for the naming. Quick Labs doesn't like gives typically really random names. But if you go to the staging project, you'll be able to see we have a new agent being deployed. Yeah, actually two, because now we did another.
Yeah, you build again.
It's redeploying itself essentially. And maybe it wasn't a great idea to redeploy itself, but this is already happening. So you can see this is our Cloud Run instance where we are hosting the code of our agent. Yeah. Then we are going to run load test. This is super interesting. Honestly, it's one of my favorite parts, which is, okay, we deployed our agent to a staging environment, right? But we want to check if our agent is actually capable of responding to the user. And you may ask, okay, but you've done integration tests earlier. Why do I need to do it? Well, there are different ways. First of all, is that this is testing it into a remote system. So everything is as similar, as close as it will be in a production environment here. So like we're using the service accounts, we will be leveraging connections to a remote DB. All these things are actually simulating the production traffic. And then finally, we're actually stressing that the agent, because we are going to run a load test. So load test means we're going to actually send a lot of requests and see if the Cloud Run instance is capable of handling this traffic. Now, for this dummy test here, I think we are sending something like, we are simulating a user where we are sending 10 we're running the load test for 10 seconds and we're simulating 10 users. And as part of the load testing, we're using a framework called Locust. So Locust is a really popular open source framework, which will allow you to load test your system, kind of simulating a user which is interacting to it. And you can say things like hey, I want 20 users, each one of them sending one request each second, and this will do it for you.
And this is sort of, sorry, what we mentioned about that path to production, right? When you're sort of deploying and developing in the Streamlit UI, you're interacting it just as a party of one. But if you have, as a startup, maybe 1,000, 10,000, or 1 million users, you want to make sure before you deploy your code, right, you test it. And that's sort of a useful mechanism using Locust.
Exactly. You want to make sure, like the load testing system is as close as possible as your real life scenario, right? You don't want to have surprises where something was working well for 2-3 users, but then in production you suddenly have 10,000 users and everything stops to work, right? You want to make sure you're preparing for it. And a really cool thing I like about Locust is that it will create a really nice dashboard for us, which will be able to inspect before we deploy to production, where we will be able to see like how our system is capable of responding to it. Like things like how many messages we sent, what was the average latency for each message, both of like when the first message was received and when the last chunk of the message, because we are streaming. So the last chunk of the message was received.
Yeah.
We will be able to see every statistics in terms of different percentiles, and things like requests per second, response times, number of users, and stuff like this. So now this was a dummy test, but you can imagine creating a comprehensive test with thousands of users running for a minute, 2 minutes, and so on. This will give you really good insights on how your system will behave. So that's it, essentially. This is deploying it to staging. Now, our agent is in a staging environment. But finally, as a user, I will be able to, it will ask me, hey, do you want to deploy to production or not? So currently, we are introducing a human in the loop in functionality where before deploying to production, we are simply asking the user. Of course, you can take it out and deploy it straight away, but that depends on your use case. Sometimes you want to have the human in the loop clicking.
Like a senior developer or senior engineer that sort of just does a last sanity check.
Exactly, because maybe you want to check your load test before you do that, or maybe you want to expose your agent to an internal set of users before deploying to production. So now we click approve, and this will essentially deploy the same agent we deployed in a staging environment, but it will be deployed to production. So yeah, this will run. But I guess we can actually show you the staging environment because it's the same thing, because I want to show you some tricks about it. So imagine now we deploy to production. Every agent we deploy to production will offer us a URL. So as part of the system, if I show you here the deployment part, we have this URL here, right? So what I can do it in production, I can do it in staging, it doesn't matter. What I can do is actually running the Streamlit part in this case, I can even run just the front end. I don't need the back end because we are going to do an interesting test. Oh, I think I need to run it from, let's run it with make playground. Okay. So let's go back to Streamlit. And now, instead of testing our local agent, we can test our agent we deploy to production and see if it's capable of responding correctly. So, I mean, in this case, we're using staging, but the exercise is kind of the same. Let's do it. Okay, so instead of a remote, we can keep it remote URL, but we're going to paste the new URL of Cloud Run. So this is the URL of Cloud Run. We're going to hit on authenticate request because we need to authenticate with Cloud Run. And fingers crossed, this should work. So it's going to do some authentication for us.
I'm still crossing my fingers for you.
Oh, it doesn't work. I think it's for because of authentication reasons. I'll need to refresh. We had the same problem yesterday in Cloud Shell. But yeah, the idea is I need to refresh the Cloud Shell environment. Sometimes I lose the authentication I need. But yeah, the idea is, there you go. It lost the authorization. Okay. But yeah, this should work now. Let's try one more time, but otherwise it's not too much important. We can avoid it. So let's run make playground one more time. Okay, and we go back to Streamlit.
Like you said, it's pretty amazing that you have all of these components, right? For startups, they don't have to use all of them, right? But like if Streamlit is very useful for these type of troubleshooting at the beginning.
Oh, there you go. Now it works. It was truly an authentication issue, right? So like this is, again, just to highlight it, I'm not talking with my agent locally here. I'm talking with the agent we deployed to staging or production. So if I ask now for weather in San Francisco, let's see if the change we just done was picking up. Yeah, it was picked up. So like you can see it's different. You can also send feedback here, right? So like I can send a feedback saying, nice. And this will essentially now, I need to change this. But yeah, essentially this will forward feedback directly to production. Now, let's try to do some experiments where we're going to see how this is being handled in the production side or in the staging side now. So if I go now to Cloud Trace, I will be able to see for each message it was sent to my agent, what the agent did. So this is super interesting because we are talking about like all the observability part, right? For example, if you look here, you can see a lot of dots. Each dot you see here is a different request we send to the model. So
and this was part of the load testing, right, that you did with Locus.
I guess only maybe the last message is a little bit different because the message we directly interact with it. So if I actually zoom into it, you will see that maybe this is the one. The last message is actually going to ask. You can see actually this is the whole chain of the model, right? So you can see here the model perform an initial request. So like we can actually zoom in and see what the model generated. So you can see here all the attributes, everything the model sees. Like you can see, if you remember correctly, I sent a message when I said hi, right? And then we said, the model said, how can I help you? And then I asked the model, weather in San Francisco. So you can actually see everything that's happening within the scenes. And then the model made a tool call, right? Because it searched for the weather. And then finally we responded. So this is what we are talking about when we say observability, the capability of having full transparency on everything that's happening within your model, which is super important. Not only that, but you will think, okay, this is great, but I don't want to click every single request to understand what's happening, right? So what's
if you want to find insights, let's say you have thousands of requests, how would you actually be able to get insights like that?
Exactly, and this is where the magic of Terraform comes in, because with Terraform, not only we've done all the CI/CD part, but we also created some special logic where each time we produce a log in cloud logging, and you can see here, you can see all the messages being created in cloud logging for us. Each time the agent will produce a log, which is the same things I show you now, it will sync it, it will write into BigQuery. So like there is a special rule, I can actually find it for you, log router. We say, hey, every time there is a log, please forward it to BigQuery for us. So now if I go to BigQuery, I will be able to see a new table being created with all the logs I just showed you. So you can see here, we have this beautiful table, which contains all the logs, all the messages the agent is receiving. So like the user response, the user messages and stuff like this. So, and as well as the feedback, because every time I will send a feedback, it will also be logged in BigQuery. You will see that, okay, this is nice, but how can I build insights on the top of it, right? And of course, like, yeah, you will need to wrestle some queries to do that. But we're also offering a Looker Studio dashboard, which will help you get started. So if I now go to Looker Studio, we offer this pre-built Looker Studio dashboard, which will help you into like building insights on the top of your agent. Of course, like there is a setup phase, which will allow you to connect it with your own specific data set. But as long as you change the project ID, the format will be the same. So like what we have here is, you can see like this is a dummy example where I started collecting some messages, and you will see things like how many conversations we are ingesting, what's the average number of turns for each conversation, how many characters on average, how many feedback we collected, what's the feedback score. You'll be able to display feedback over time. So imagine you have thousands of users, each one of them giving feedback. You'll be able to see like different dashboard of like different feedback over time. And for each different session, each different conversation, you can zoom in on it. And you'll be able to see all the different messages the user and the AI are exchanging, which is super powerful because this will actually give you to put some order and extract insights from your application. Because again, the end goal is building insights so that I can go back to the developing phase and start changing the agent, right? Because maybe we discovered that 70 degrees wasn't a great idea, and I want to go to 100 degrees, right? Just giving you an example, but this is the power, right? I do this, I can make a new commit, and boom, again, we are in production in a matter of minutes. So this is the power of like iterating really quickly.
And that's sort of the feedback loop as we mentioned, right? The feedback loop is not just one moment. It's not just, you chat with the AI and you get a response. It can be all the way on the Looker side when you have a visualization, you're sort of seeing aggregate data, right, in a way that us humans could really interpret really well. And then you sort of realize, oh, I have to make a change, right? Or it could be in the BigQuery side, right? Maybe you need, you have data warehousing background and you know SQL really well. And then you could just query all the interactions that your users are having and again, get insights. But, this is sort of what we mentioned. These are the best practices, right? Do all startups use everything that we see here? Obviously not, right? But it is sort of a pick and choose your own journey.
Yeah, I mean, if you're starting from scratch, you can, but we've seen many startups saying, okay, I like the observability part. I'm just going to do that because we already have an engine in production. So this is a missing piece, but we are going to use our own setup. But yeah, you can actually pick and choose what you like.
Okay. So do you think it's a good time to bring John back on so we could take a little break, and then anyone that's asking questions, we could then fill their Q&A at the end?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, let's bring back John onto the stage. And again, thanks so much, everyone. We'll be right back. Hey, John. Oh, you're on mute.
Did it again. I did it again. That was awesome, gentlemen. Thank you so much. I hope our back-end system is ready for the load we're going to get. Maybe you guys can start working on that now, because I think this video is going to be very popular on the on-demand system. So I hope our load balancing and serving is up to the task. We've got some questions here. Let's take a look. We have Ayaj, I'm sorry if I didn't get that quite right. Will the starter pack be part of Agent Builder?
So the starter pack, so Agent Builder is a set of portfolio of products in GCP which aim to develop your agent. So in this idea here, the starter pack is actually a foundational piece on the top of Agent Builder. So we actually support Agent Builder products to create a nice user journey experience for you to develop agents. So you will actually leverage Agent Builder products, but it's not officially part of Agent Builder as a product, but it's kind of a solution to showcase Agent Builder, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, and as a reminder, right, it is open source, so it is on GitHub, right? And you guys could see all the code there. It's all there. Obviously, it touches a lot of different Vertex AI and Google Cloud services first, and we're going to expand as we get more feedback from all of you.
Okay, great. John, that's an easy one, asks, how long this path to production could take for a small team, one product guy and one dev? So how long on average do you think this path to
I
production
think
takes?
what was cool is sort of the numbers we shared, right? Our team took around 3-ish months to get sort of the skeleton of what you guys see. And the reason why is because we kept seeing startups take 3 to 9 months to get somewhere meaningful in production. But you guys saw live, right? Ilya spun up 3 different agents. Now, this is skeleton, meaning you still have to add your business logic. So really, the only thing that's going to be dependent here is your business logic, which, to be honest, tends to be the funnest part of developing these agents anyways. But you could sort of rely on the starter pack of doing sort of that boring, tedious, repetitive task that everyone has to do, right? CI/CD, observability, having the UI components, all that, and the feedback loops is already pre-baked. Ellie, I don't know if you want to add more to that.
No, totally. So like that part, the boring part, the response is minutes for the boring part. It depends on you for the fun part, essentially.
So in this case, the business logic was answering questions about the weather. You had the agent using a tool.
Exactly.
It would answer questions about the weather. If your business logic is that simple, okay. If it's sophisticated, hey, that might take a little more time.
Yeah. Or the other example that Ilya presented with the live API, right? Sort of reacting to him, sort of, basically he replaced me with that AI, right? That's another example too.
Makes perfect sense. Okay. Venton asks, can this agent starter pack be integrated into existing applications via an API? And if so, how can it process data to generate reports that are dynamically displayed within the app? What are the key steps and requirements to achieving this? Okay, so let's break that down.
Right.
Can it be integrated into an existing app via API?
Yes, correct. It's already the case. So for example, for the agent we just deployed on Cloud Run, I can actually show you it's literally an API. So you can literally see the Swagger API spec, which will see, okay, it is an endpoint call, 3 messages, you need to send these responses there. So yes, you can already use it as any other API you would use typically.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
How can it process data? So the same way, it receives data through the API. It's going to go into the ingestion engine. It's going to use the same reports, all the same backend. That's an HTTPS endpoint for what you just did, essentially.
correct.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very customized to your use case. For example, a startup that I was working with, they just wanted the CI/CD, right? They're like, oh, we already built the other stuff, but the CI/CD was something we were just struggling with, and they just took that, right? And that's fine, right? The whole goal is to sort of help you get to production. And if you need the whole thing, great, right? We want to get your feedback. But if you just need bits and pieces, maybe the monitoring and the Looker dashboard BigQuery is something you're missing in your application, feel free to grab that portion and run with it.
So you can modify the Terraform
Totally.
to do whatever you want, take which pieces you want, change which pieces you want. It's all open for you.
Exactly.
Yes, definitely. We see many, some enterprises needing, or some startups needing, for example, everything running privately or integration with I don't know, on premises. You can do that via Terraform, right? So you can set up all these requirements as part of the architecture.
Great. Okay, question by Ashik. I built the integration with Gemini model using your Python SDK. What I found when we pushed the code to production usage, we encountered scaling issues. Okay, how do we handle scaling issues with the production?
So I'm not sure if by your Python SDK you mean like because we didn't develop any Python SDK, to be sure. Like we have a Google AI, Vertex AI SDK, yes. Like the starter pack is not the SDK. I love to see like what kind of errors you're getting. In general, there are some best practices. So the first best practice is, typically we recommend to customers using something called provision and throughput. So provision and throughput is a product in Vertex AI where you will say, hey, I have a load. I'm expecting X number of requests each minute. I can actually make sure there is some throughput saved for me in Vertex AI so that this load will be taken care of. Yeah. So it's a different way to consume Gemini compared to pay as you go. Now, beyond that, of course, you can consider like one great example in the starter pack is running load tests so that you can actually understand and try to break the system before you actually go to production, right? So you can try to simulate a set number of requests when you are on staging so that when you're in production, you don't expect, you won't encounter the same issue because maybe you found some workarounds. There are different workarounds. One of the workaround is routing maybe to a fallback model. So for example, instead of using, I don't know, Gemini Pro, you fall back to Gemini Flash in case there is an issue. Things like this can happen.
Okay. And they could build out this system that you're talking about, take the code that they wrote for the Gemini API, bring it in as their business logic, and that would have the whole framework and all the plumbing, and then they could do all the load testing that you just did and imitate what you just did.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And the good news is, I think last week Luis Sala presented in this. I'll put the link in the chat, but he talked about sort of how to deal with this, right? To make sure of load balancing, of implementing exponential back off, right? Sort of best practices to just mitigate having sort of your API surfacing to your customer. He also mentioned an open source tool called Light LLM, which has already this pre-baked.
Yeah, correct.
Makes sense. Okay. Roshit asks, what are some ways to manage data anonymization? Like, for example, PII, when tools like BigQuery and Looker to monitor agents and making insights. What are some ways to do that?
Yeah, the good news is that it's not a GenAI specific way. It's actually part of the best practices of using BigQuery. So I don't know if I can share a link because Abraham, maybe you are part of the chat, so I can
send it to me.
Forward to me. You can forward, but there is a really good documentation on BigQuery that I think is like 30 different pages talking about data governance. So this is actually the best place to start. I really think BigQuery is a great place to secure your data because it offers things like columnar level access, row level access, auto obfuscation, data masking, all these kind of things you can apply to your data, no matter if it's a GenAI data generated by your agent or it's data, tabular data. So you can do all these kind of things already. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And one nice thing about BigQuery, it does have a feature called DLP, which stands for data loss protection or prevention. So essentially it does this. It anonymizes the data, PII, and it's, I think, just a check mark that you do within BigQuery. So it's already built in. It is an API. So if you want your agent, right, to scrub out all PII information, you just have to call that API as well.
Yeah, you can do it. You can save and then automatically do it on a batch, or you can even consider even before logging the data, you will mask it. Yeah, so you can also do that.
Makes sense. And that bubbles all the way through Vertex AI and GCP. So there's lots of ways to handle all sorts of different compliance issues, not just PII, but any kind of compliance issue that you have end to end, making sure your data is encrypted, making sure it's encrypted at rest, all the types of things that might be included in whatever type of compliance you're trying to do. Great. Okay. I think that's it for the questions. So we are going to give Abraham and Ilya a break. Thank you very much, gentlemen. This was amazing. Lots and lots of learning there. Wonderful work. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Take care, everyone.
All right. We will go back to the less exciting piece, but still somewhat exciting, of the slides. So if you want to work with people like Abraham and Iliam, sign up for the Google Cloud for Startups program. You will get credits. You will get an account team. You will get to work with Google engineers. It's all goodness for you. So please do go ahead and sign up there. Now we will go next. There is a wonderful paper about the future of AI that we have put out recently, go to the QR code here and grab it, download it. It is free. 23 AI leaders and luminaries have given their opinion on what's going to happen for the future of AI and startups. It's a tremendous paper. I highly recommend you go grab that. If you're going to join us in Las Vegas, April 9th through 11th for Google Cloud Next, we have a coupon code for you here at the QR code, or $7.99 startup, which will allow you to get a ticket for $799. So I will be there. I hope to see you there. The QR code and the coupon expire on March 17th. So please go ahead and grab that as soon as you can. We always want to hear your thoughts. So here is a link to give us your thoughts about week 2, anything you've seen, any input you have, feedback, comments. We'd love to hear it. That goes into improving this round of Startup School and our next round of Startup School. Super important. Please take a little bit of time to do this, because we really love that and we really value it. Jump onto our Discord. A lot of fun, lots of Googlers in there, terrific community, lots of questions. If you have questions about what you've just seen here today, or you want to discuss it with Googlers or the rest of the community, go ahead and add our Discord. It's a cool place to hang out and talk about these things. Okay, and next week I won't be with you. I'll be at the HumanX conference in Las Vegas. So if you are in Las Vegas for the HumanX conference, come by the Google booth and sessions. I will be there, can meet you in person. But otherwise, we will be showing Mastering Gen AI Applications hands-on workshop with weights and biases. So that is going to be tremendous and interesting. So please do attend. And thank you very much for spending some of your valuable time with us today. I won't see you next week. Someone else will, but I will see you the week after that. Thank you again, and see you in a couple weeks.